Right, Nick, I've got something great today because you said we were going to talk VHSs. So I brought my VHSs with. I've got The Odd Couple. I've got Leslie Nielsen's Wrongfully Accused.
That's not it.
I have Dr. Zhivago.
That's
Leslie Nielsen's Bad Golf My Way. No, we're not talking Tucker, Electric White and Blue?
No, but are those movies from 94?
No, but I guess we could talk VHS 94.
Let's do it, yeah!
Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and thanks for finding us, thanks for watching, and for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. Go ahead, hit like and subscribe. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. We do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great options. Today we're going to talk about a relatively new movie for us for horror movies and another anthology. Let's go. It's VHS 94. Yeah. How old were you in 94?
4. Yeah. But this one is recent, and it was made set in 94. Yeah. A police SWAT team discovers a mass grave of cult worshippers focused on VHS tapes containing horrific content, all the while their investigation finding that the cult itself has not been completely wiped out.
So this is a kind of an almost nostalgia piece. I don't know why we continue with the nostalgia. It's 1994, which is pretty weird. We did have, like, I think Netflix has that 90s horror thing, that 80s horror thing, I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so... it's not really nostalgia, but the effective works of making it look like it's a VHS tape is what I really enjoy about this movie. There's certain movies I really like, but that's overall the effect of making it look like it's a VHS homemade. Yeah,
so
it's very clever.
The way I viewed the film is I actually watched the original film. This is the 5th film in this franchise. Oh. Very disconnected films, but like this is the 5th one. There was the original VHS, there was VHS 2, there was the incredibly terrible VHS Viral, which is almost unwatchable. Then there was a spin-off called Siren, which basically took one of the characters from the first film and gave them their own movie. And now this one. Okay. None of them are really all that connected.
There's no really thread to connect.
No, and even the wraparound stories are not really connected. I think there's like a slight reference in one of the films to another one, but nothing major, and there's different filmmakers. So going into this one, I just seen VHS Viral again, and I was like, man, it's just a bad movie. It just does not work. But what I've always said about found footage is very hard to maintain entertaining, interesting qualities for an entire movie. So that's why the idea of VHS works really well for me, because it's found footage, but it's not a whole movie. It's 5 short movies with a little wraparound.
Yeah, which I think it was Japan was doing that in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
It was like small vignettes, short story films.
Yep, and they got some great directors who were kind of looking to get into things. It was produced by Bloody Disgusting, and it became a Shudder original. Like, they know their audience. They know who they're selling to with this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And what I think is nice is that they, after that 3rd film, they thought about it, didn't make a new one immediately afterwards, but then they went to David Bruckner, who
from Bloody Disgusting.
And he just recently did The Night House. He's working on the new Hellraiser movie. David Bruckner, who did one of the shorts in the original VHS, and they also reached out to Radio Silence, who had done one of the other really great shorts in the first film, and now have gone on to make films like Devil's Due, Ready or Not. They're doing the new Scream film. Like, they've got these 2 guys who did very well within the confines of their world to create the narrative this time around and learn from the mistakes that they had. So while this film doesn't capture the entire spirit of those first 2 movies, which I think are almost perfect, it's a big step in the right direction for the series.
And I think if you do it cheaply, it's far more effective, especially when you're restrained. Obviously, they did it during the pandemic, so you're really I won't say handicapped, but you're really limited on what you can do. So you can really do the grainy footage and really get away with, cheap police costumes. But that's what the effectiveness is. Everything kind of looks cheap, but the effects are the special effects, the makeup, the costumes, the villain, all that is really effective. Yeah. And that's what we really want to see.
Yeah. And I think you had mentioned it with P2, I believe it was, where you said you wish the film had that grittier shot with a VHS camera style. I felt that more watching this movie than even with the other movies in the series, where it felt like a student film that might have been real, like that where you're kind of questioning, is it real or not? So what we're going to do this time around is, like we've done with a couple other anthologies, is we'll go through it short by short, just share a few moments on each one of them, because you can't really talk about the film itself unless we
you're going to get lost in, like, are you talking about that one,
So first of all, let's talk about the wraparound narrative, which has been called Holy Hell. It's the prologue and the frame narrative.
I like the title.
Written and directed by Jennifer Reeder, and it follows a SWAT team.
If I looked up my research, I think she's a professor of film studies at Chicago, if I like that art. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it follows, the wraparounds in each of these movies have never been the best parts of them. In fact, the VHS number one, it's the worst part, is that frame narrative. This time around, I think it's okay. It works fine.
Right. Don't give like the big punch at the end. But
yeah, what I keep hoping is, like, they kept saying with this time around that they were going to make the individual shorts more cohesive with the frame narrative. Like, that was going to be the idea behind it. I never felt like we really connected what we're watching on the VHS tapes to what we're experiencing in the frame narrative. And that's been consistently the problem of these movies, is that the framing device never really works that well. Maybe the best in VHS 2, where it's two people breaking into a home and they find a bunch of VHS tapes. Like, that's the best way to kind of go about it.
Yeah.
And this time around, again, it works fine, but there was a lot of times where we'd get done with one of the shorts and go back to that main narrative, and I'd kind of forgotten what we were doing there.
Right.
And that's kind of what hit me with this one. So it's not bad. It's just, it's the weakest part of the movie, I think, for me.
No, but effective of, you have to do almost a police squad, because I don't want to sit there with exposition. We're not going to sit there with exposition, but you're going to get your action, and then you're going to get like almost like a vignette of going to carnival. Go to this window. Oh, that's horrible. Go here. That's disgusting. Yeah. So it's almost like what we want in the first place.
Yeah. When Martin Scorsese criticized Marvel movies as being theme park rides, I felt that more in this movie. Because you kind of felt like you were sitting in the chair, like, what are we going to see next? You know.
And it was almost like I thought, like, if we go to one cell, maybe that's the start of one of the movies.
Yep.
If we go to the next, it didn't really materialize that way. I thought, but that would be an interesting start of a. And of course, when you do squats, you could just stump people, and they could do, put them on the mask. Yeah.
And that's good if you have to get everyone masked to make your movie, is you get masks on them already. Yeah. And framing devices, I mean, generally, they're not what make or break the movie, but, it's just, they never work all as well as they could. They're not fully realized. Let's move on to, I think, the one that trended on Twitter the most, which was Storm Drain, written and directed by Chloe Okuno.
Ratman?
Yeah. Which involves,
why don't you just call it Ratman, for God's sake?
Well, everyone wants to be clever.
Okay.
Plus, there is a storm drain. It follows a woman and her cameraman as they go down to try and find some evidence of the
it's almost like a Gale Weathers.
Yeah, exactly.
She's almost doing her best Gale Weathers. I was like, this is Courtney Cox's Scream.
Oh, yeah. And I like that it started off with a news broadcast and kind of like really related.
That looks so essentially 90s. I thought we did there's a commercial in there, but I was like, did the tape stop, right?
Yeah, and so I was impressed with that one. That's the one that has been all over Twitter since this movie aired, where like I knew kind of where we were heading. I'd seen the creature design that was on display. It didn't really take away from the movie for me, but it is, maybe its biggest criticism is that it's not really a story. It's kind of, again, that's a theme park ride moment where you're like riding down the storm drain and you're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 and then you kind of get your release and get to move on to the next one. It's very simple.
But it's, when I watch it, I do like that one, but you can tell the inspiration is from the Spanish Record.
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah.
Which they did the American version of that.
Yep.
With
Quarantine,
yeah, but Record very much of, dude, where do you want to go down that? Well, the camera's going down there. What's that noise? That very, it's almost like a maze, a labyrinth maze.
Yeah.
It's very much ancient myths, almost like you trying to find the Minotaur in the maze. It's very much like Record, and I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I had the feeling like I was playing one of my horror games. So I love playing horror games. Like when I can play a video game at like midnight, and like everything's dark out and you just kind of go down the little room and get scared. I like that experience, so I did enjoy it. And I think the Ratma is a really cool creature design. It kind of like just looks human enough to disturb you.
Looks like male genitals, for God's sakes.
To each his own.
With teeth. With teeth that spits out horrible venom.
Yeah, so that one was
spoiler, sorry.
Really fun little movie, and I like the way it ends. It's got a very Howling Scanners-esque vibe to its ending that is just gruesome enough to make you go like, oh yeah, grab some popcorn. Yeah. It was a fun little
very
little
cultish. Short. I mean, obviously the cult leaders are looking very non-threatening.
Yeah,
I just love that non-threatening kind of look.
Yeah, and then we have to make a quick pause here to just mention too. The Veggie Masher, which is a fake commercial that was written and directed by Steven Kostanski, who recently did Psycho Gorman last year. He also did Leprechaun Returns.
Brian Denger's movie.
Yeah. When he mentioned that, I was like, I feel like he just did something recently. But yeah, he worked on this film. He also did Leprechaun Returns. Did a great movie called The Void, and he does this little tiny commercial for the Veggie Masher, which is like, again, it's just
so 90s.
realistic enough where you're like, did that exist? Did that really exist? I gotta go looking for it, and then I realized it was fake. But
it's like from Mandy, the mac and cheese goblin.
The goblin. Yeah, I kept wondering, like, is that what they're doing?
Yeah.
But it was a funny little moment. It reminded me like how WandaVision had utilized those fake commercials to kind of like enhance the story and the atmosphere. It worked pretty well for me.
So 90s.
Yeah. On to the next one, The Empty Wake, written and directed by Simon Barrett.
This is one of my favorites.
You like this one a lot, huh?
I really did.
Okay,
yeah.
good. I didn't dislike any of these, but this was probably the one I least liked of the stories, outside of the framing device itself. Like, and it's not a bad one at all. It's very good. It's got good atmosphere. I like when they play with.
I get the joke of the 2-camera technique.
Yep.
We want to make a move. We have two cameras so we can
Yep. And that's what I like about it is that what these movies do really well is when each film has a distinct flavor and utilizes the technology of the camera differently. You know, we get in one of the movies that's VHS 2, I think, has a GoPro part, and I think that was really effective.
We're getting there.
And like we've got that kind of here too with these dual cameras and playing around with that. Simon Barrett, who wrote one of my favorite horror movies in recent memory, You're Next, got a chance to write and direct this piece.
That is actually a good
really,
one.
Really entertaining, and it's got that theme park ride feel to it, where it's pretty light, it's pretty fluffy, but I enjoyed it.
And it's got great, like I said, we're not here for the stories, but it really knocked me out with the special effects and makeup and that.
Just that moment where you like look at the dead guy and you realize that his head is
very much like the Reanimator kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so I tried to look up and I was like, is he doing his version like Reanimator, like Frankenstein thing? And he's like, I got an inspiration from the Soviet movie V. It's like, what? I will never put the links together. If you watch V, weird. But yeah, it's very much like if you like Reanimator, like two different things going on at the same time, but it's really effective. That is really clever.
Yeah, it felt like kind of the story that I just went through in December. I read all these scary stories to tell in the dark books, which are like 30 stories and 100 pages, so there's like very little. It's mostly just like quick movement fluff stories, but they're entertaining little scary moments. That's what I felt like watching this short.
And the right ending for it. Let's just throw everything at it and we're done.
Yep,
great.
Exactly.
I love that.
All right, so we get to the biggest short in the collection, which is The Subject, written and directed by, I'm going to say this wrong, Timo Tjahjanto.
I think so.
Probably correct, probably wrong, I don't know. The Indonesian mad scientist, which takes up, I think,
crazy.
a half hour of the plot.
Very much like Human Centipede almost.
Yeah, this is one where it's kind of that gonzo horror, where it's just so weird, so unusual, but you kind of just exist in the world with it for a little bit. Yeah. Each one of the films kind of has one of these, where it's just like that, just completely out of left field. We've got robot-human hybrids fighting each other, and it's completely insane. I liked this one. I didn't love it as much as some of the previous
It's very much
Gonzos.
video game-ish.
Yes.
Very much first one player. It's almost like Doom.
Yep.
That's when it's like, oh my god, now you got this weapon.
Yep.
Oh my god, now you got this, and how are you gonna be clever about so it's almost like if you play video games, you like that kind of point of view. I think you really enjoy this. It takes a while to get started.
It's a bit slow in the pickup. And I like that we get all of our setup though in the first couple minutes, so we can just kind of have fun with the environment.
A little bit like RoboCop when he starts turning on RoboCop, and it's like his point of view.
Yeah, and it might be one of the only times I can reference Chekhov's sword arm, which that was what he was going to call it first, but then he changed it to Chekhov's gun, of course. But Chekhov's sword arm was the original title for it. It's a fun little piece right there. Actually, I really dug. This is one that I feel is most like of its own world, where it's like I want to know more about what's happening in this realm where you've got these giant robots hidden under the Indonesian.
It's almost like this doctor would have been one of the doctors in Hostel. He just find people and have his own little scare of it. But yeah, they filmed it pretty good. I mean, obviously there's not a lot of action, so they put that lighting with the fan. So you need something moving. Yeah, and I think they knew that because it's a little more too stationary. Yeah,
and then when the action picks up, you can kind of get lost in a little bit, which is fun. But yeah, like that opening part is maybe its biggest detractor, is that you're kind of just waiting for the moment because she's gonna get out. She's going to try to fight for escape. You get where the movie's going maybe 5 minutes earlier, and it just takes a bit to kind of get.
A little bit of the Blood Diner reference with the jar.
Oh, I was wondering about that when I saw that.
Yeah. So that's what's enjoyable about this is like if you see enough horror movies, you're like, I get the
inspirations are there.
Yeah.
And again, it's not forceful nostalgia or fan service. It's just kind of like, hey, just I love this. And I'm going to use it.
Easter egg drops.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of it. Absolutely. Yeah, that could totally be.
But nowadays, if you put head in a jar, it's either going to be Silence of the Lambs or Blood Diner.
Yeah, and I kept getting elements of like Alien Resurrection when like Ripley's clone finds all the other clones. Like,
oh yeah,
that, like I kept seeing that moment being played out in this like Gonzo horror style too. I don't know. I thought it was fun. It was a cool little thing, and again, it's unique. It's the most unique part of the movie.
It's a little more probably the most action one.
Yeah, and if you don't like it, it's the longest part, which that could be a bit problematic. It's about 30 minutes of the runtime. But if you like, you're gonna love it or hate it. I thought it was pretty great. I thought it was entertaining.
Far more effective Doom aspect than the movie Doom.
Yeah, or the other movie Doom Annihilation.
Oh my God,
that was.
You're right. Yeah.
And then we move on to the last one, which actually is my favorite one, which is Terror, written and directed by Ryan Prowse, and it's that First Patriots militia group that have some. They keep referencing the creature that they have, and we get to figure out like that it's a vampire that they're holding on to. That's blood explodes in the sunlight, and it's such a weird kind of a movie.
And it had to look like they filmed it up north in Minnesota.
Yeah, when they mentioned that they were in Detroit, I was like, I was really hoping that was Minneapolis.
That was so Minnesota, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, right. It's a little more. If you know about a movie that happened about 3 years ago, it's called Standoff at Sparrow Creek, which is about a militia, and they're kind of like who's the bad guy around the group. It's a little bit like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it kind of a standalone. There's really no reference. Obviously, a little more like recording holding a monster, and you just get a little snippet of it, but. I love all the pledges they do in front.
Yeah,
it's kind of has a little more comedy to this.
I think that helps when you have a group of completely unlikable people. Like these are all guys that when you meet them, you're like, if something tears them to pieces, that's.
But that's why you want to.
You know, yeah, you're waiting on that. And so I like that it's a bit self-condemning that we have people we don't really care about in the sense that we care more about what happened. Like we want something bad to happen. It's got that Tales from the Crypt vibe, where like they always have a bad person in Tales from the Crypt. That is your leader, that you're just waiting for the moment when they get what's coming to them. I found it was incredibly entertaining, and it's again, like Storm Drain, those two shorts felt like 1994, whereas the other two
Well, they had the right vehicles, the right time, and everything.
Yeah, and they call out Waco. They specifically call out Waco, and it's like, okay, so like we're placing ourselves in a time period.
I do one of my favorite cliches in horror movies, and nobody's really done a bad version of this. It's like, anybody in there, and you just roll out a head.
Yeah.
I love that. Hello, and you just...
Heads used for forward momentum in a story, like when Jason Voorhees punches the guy's head off in Friday the 13th, Part 8. Check it out; it's great. Heads rolling is kind of just a fun moment. It's a good callback to every other time it happens, and you never get bored of it.
It's a little bit like Silent Night, Deadly Night. You know, the guy's going on the sled and just...
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit like that.
Yeah. So, that was my personal favorite because I think it ends the film on a high note.
Well, it's because it's outside and looks like northern Minnesota, right?
I mean, I do connect
it's
with
snow.
it. You know? I connect with it on a purely setting base, not a militia base. Let me just point that out right now. But I think one of the things I really enjoyed about the first VHS movie is that the last short in that film is the best one, and it leaves you on a great point. That I felt like with this one. This was my favorite one, and it left me in wow, that was a fun watch.
And it's a little more fun. It's a little more comedy, and obviously there's a little more comedy peppered into it. But that was a straight up. We could laugh at like this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Whereas like the previous film, VHS Viral has one good short. One of them is good, and the rest are just really, really awful. And that one occurs early enough in the movie where you feel how much you miss that one as the movie goes on. This I never really felt like there was a bad group one in there, except for I just didn't really connect with the wraparound, but I just haven't connected with the wraparounds anyway. So I wasn't expecting to love that portion, but I did like each of the individual shorts.
And that's the fight that you have to do that anthologies, because one of them can be the weakest link, one can be the strong suit, but you have a good nexus that can maintain sustainability.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bloody Disgusting knows its fan base, knows what it's like, knows what everybody else likes, and this is what they're going to serve up.
Yeah, and I think putting it on Shudder, like those are the people that are going to watch it. Like it's not getting this movie out in amongst the fans, like that is your fan base right there.
Mainstream hates it, that's going to feed them off even more.
Yep, exactly. So I think VHS 94, while not as strong as the first two films, definitely rights the ship of the franchise and makes me want to go back and revisit.
Yeah, they definitely changed the rudder and let's go right direction.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see what David Bruckner does with Hellraiser.
Yeah, and that's what it's nice to see too, is you see someone like a David Bruckner who probably wouldn't have had the career, at least not in the place he is right now, without the first film, getting to do something like Hellraiser, The Night House, which I still haven't seen, but I really want to. And then he also did a great movie on Netflix called The Ritual, which is one of the best horror movies again in recent years.
Was that the big four-legged monster?
Yeah, that's a good one. And then of course Radio Silence getting to do the new Scream movie. Like they've moved in places because of this franchise, and it's nice to see them shepherding in a couple more filmmakers.
Well, I think he knows the formula. You need some repulsive characters to have their day. Just getting so you go, yeah. You just need one of them.
Bruckner's short in the first film does that plenty.
Yeah, you just need one of them. Just like Texas Chainsaw, you need one kid that just gets it, and you're like, yeah.
So overall, was there any like completely distasteful portions of the film for you, or?
I know we're gonna get that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little more like one of those Faces of Death kind of a things.
Yeah.
And that's one of the inspirations I had when I worked at Video Store. We had like volume 10, 1 through 10 of those. So yeah, very much like Faces of Death. Very much like, but if you're a veteran of horror movies, you're gonna love it because it's a lot of the reference. Like you see these things.
Yeah. And it's nice to see one that I think mostly hits it out of the park because anthologies are very tough, especially if you have different directors.
You're rolling a really big risk.
I think the only anthology that I know in memory that like gets into my discussion of top 10 movies or top 10 horror movies is like Creepshow. Like that's the only one that really ever gets like really in that discussion for is it one of my favorite horror movies, because just anthologies are really tough to do. But I think that this one knocks it out pretty nicely, and comparative to the other one, it gets compared with ABCs of Death a lot, which is 26 shorts in a 2-hour movie, and most of them aren't good. This one is a much more like palatable group of films.
Yeah. So overall, I think it's a nice little stepping stone for people to get their out there, see what they're really talented for. There's really good special effects. Like I said, the empty casket one.
Yep.
Really good special effects. That's really clever.
Being able to utilize the VHS component of the film, so that way, if you can't pull off a special effect, you can put a little bit of tracking.
And just blur it a little bit, right?
There's a couple of moments where I think I could tell that the budget was like, oh, we couldn't afford to do this the best way, so like we're just gonna run this over it a little bit, and it's like it didn't take me out of the movie. In fact, it added to it. It was kind of like I just read an interview with a filmmaker that asked if he could put cigarette burns in his feature film, even though the movie was shot digitally.
Right there.
And it was like, yeah, I appreciate that little add-on, and if you notice it, you do. If you don't notice it, you never would. So, yeah, what do you think about VHS 94? Is it your favorite VHS film, your least favorite? Let us know in the comment section.
I think if you're a horror fan and you're really just concentrating on a horror genre, I have some friends that just strictly love, all they do is watch horror movies, probably enjoy this movie.
That's fair. Which of the shorts was your favorite in the film too? I'd like to know about that, because that's kind of a
Simon Beck. Yeah,
it's kind of a different grouping. I think a lot of people are gonna like one over the other, and I it'll be interesting to see kind of where that vote.
It's all different flavors, right?
Yeah, and they all pretty much work. Yeah. So while you're doing that, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Check out the Patreon too. If you want us to talk about another VHS movie, that's the best way to get your voice heard, is go on that Patreon and join us at the $5 tier and up. You can join for as low as $1, but at $5 a month, you get not only access to Picks with Kyle and Nick, our Patreon exclusive entertainment, but you also get a chance to just join in on the conversation and pick some of the movies we talk about.
God, I remember when in 1994, I think video rentals were 99 cents.
I didn't pay for this one, so I already had Shudder. There's no chance I was missing it. But for all of you guys out there, thanks for watching again. We'll see you next Saturday with another Scary Movie Saturday. Yeah. And you can find my film reviews on GoToReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and of course you can find that on the internet.
Perfect. We're going to watch Wrongfully Accused?
Hey, I like that.
Yeah, there we go.